Hi everyone, I'm Chris. This is the Vinyl Orchard. Thank you for joining me today. And if you're watching this in January 2026, then Happy New Year to you. Hope you're well. Today I've got 50 records for you, 50 records that turn 50 this year, all released in the year 1976. So I've got a bunch of album tracks, I've got some albums, and I've got some 45s to share with you. So let's get cracking. High Voltage by AC/DC, the title track from their first album here in the UK anyway, backed with Livewire, which was often the opening song at their concerts. 1976 saw Agents of Fortune by Blue Oyster Cult come out, and the single from that was Don't Fear the Reaper, their classic song, 50 years old this year. Great vocal performance from Julie Covington on Don't Cry For Me, Argentina. I think that's a beautiful song. And still hanging on to a little bit of glam, this is the Heavy Metal Kids and She's No Angel. Great tune. 1976 saw, I think, the greatest selling live album of all time, Frampton Comes Alive. There are a few singles of that. Show Me the Way, I think, is the pick. And here we have the Climax Blues Band and Couldn't Get It Right, which is probably, well, without a doubt, their most famous song. And then the grandiose song that is Music by John Miles. Love that, great tune. And then also from 76, Rock and Me by Steve Miller from the album Fly Like an Eagle, with its kind of All Right Now riff. Great tune. This band were kind of started off being quite proggy, ended up being quite AOR, produced loads and loads of albums. Some of them are really decent. This is their most well-known hit, alongside a song called Dust in the Wind, probably. This is Carry On Wayward Son by Kansas on the Kirshner label. Next up, Europa by Santana, beautiful instrumental featuring the wonderful guitar of Carlos Santana from the album Amigos. Next up in 76, Status Quo. Status Quo produced a couple of singles in 76, Wild Side of Life, Rain Song, and I think the best song from Blue For You, which is, I think, their last best a good album, and that's Mystery Song. Now, the single version is shorter than the album version. I think the album version is kind of a bit meandering, but the single version is absolutely brilliant. It was written by Rick Parfitt, and I think he stayed up all night to write that. I think he was on something. Next up, I remember seeing this band on Top of the Pops and thinking they were proper weird. But anyway, Sensational Alex Harvey Band and Boston Tea Party. What a great song that is. And also from 76, 10cc, I'm Mandy Fly Me from How Dare You. It's almost proggy, I think, that song. It's quite a complex little tune. Great melody to it, but a really complex little tune. I love it. It's 10cc, I'm Mandy Fly Me. Flexi Disc from Pat Travers. This is Makes No Difference, which for me is the standout track from the debut album by Pat Travers, and I think one of his best songs. They often used to finish with it live. I saw him at Reading and they finished with that song. Fantastic. 76 saw pub rock morphing slowly into punk, and I think Teenage Depression by Eddie and the Hot Rods is quite a good example of that on Island. And then a new label started up in 1976, and that was Stiff Records, and the first single from that was So It Goes by Nick Lowe, 50 years old this year, as is of course the second single also on that label, which is Pink Fairies, Between the Lines. Fantastic stuff. Also on Stiff Records was a single that I had in 1977, and I sold it a couple of years later for quite a lot of money to a sixth former at my school, and I really regret it because it's now worth a few £100. I do have it on vinyl, I have it on the album, but I also have it on a compilation that I bought in 1977. The song that came out though in 1976 and is often seen as the first British punk tune, and it's of course New Rose by The Damned. Now, I also nearly included a Saints song as well, I'm Stranded, but I think that came out in 77 here in the UK. I think it might have come out in Australia in 76, so I haven't included that. But there's another song, because I'm Stranded was often seen as one of the first ever punk singles. But there's another song on here from 76 that I also love, and that's Flaming Groovies and Shake Some Action. And 1976 also brought us on EMI Records, and if you've got the money, on A&M as well, a single that became one of the defining tunes of a defining band of that particular era. Of course, we're talking about the Sex Pistols and Anarchy in the UK. I don't have the EMI version, or sadly the A&M version. This is the French import that we had in 77, but it is a 76 tune. So there's the 45s. Let's do some album tracks. I don't have the album that it's on. I can't even remember the name of the album. I just remember it's not very good, but I love this song. It's on this compilation. It's Hall & Oates, and the song is called Rich Girl. Brilliant melody. I think they were so capable, these two, of writing absolutely stellar pop songs, great harmonies and great melodies, and Rich Girl is a good example of that. A little bit of jazz fusion. I think this is certainly one of the best albums by Jeff Beck. He's a master of the Stratocaster, and on here there's some absolutely fantastic stuff, but Blue Wind, I think, is a fusion classic. Trading off guitar and keyboards with him and Jan Hammer. Fantastic stuff. 76 saw The Roaring Silence by Manfred Mann come out with its textured sleeve. This is the album that spawned Blinded by the Light, the Bruce Springsteen cover, which is probably their most famous song. I do like Road to Babylon on here. Some great guitar from Dave Flett, who incidentally became a touring member of Thin Lizzy briefly. In the kind of early 80s, there was a band, or there was a band called Y&T. Previously, though, they were called Yesterday and Today. It just wasn't very catchy and no one could chant it, so they changed it to Y&T. But this is their debut from 76. They did 2 albums in the 70s, this and an album called Struck Down. This, I think, is probably the better of the 2. Song on here called Game Playing Woman, which is a fantastic song. Their lead guitarist, Dave Meniketti, is a brilliant guitarist and also a tremendous vocalist, and that shows his skills off really, really well. Next up is Japanese percussionist Stomu Yamashita, and a kind of collaboration with Steve Winwood and Michael Shriver on this particular album. There's a song on here called Crossing the Line, which has got a stellar guitar solo, and also in 76 a live version of it came out on this, Crossing the Line Live. And the guitar solo is usually done, I think it's done on this album, by Audi Meola, and it's usually done by Audi Meola, but on the live album it's done by a guy called Pat Thrall, who played with Glenn Hughes on Hughes Thrall and Pat Travers in the Pat Travers Band. But the guitar solo on Crossing the Line, utterly sublime. A different guitarist, but also very good, is Larry Carlton. He played for a number of years with the Crusaders. This, I think, is their best album. It comes from 76, and Then There Were the Blues is really worth listening to. What a fantastic groove that's got. We had a couple of albums from this guy next. I think this is the pick. It's his debut album, Howlin' Wind, Graham Parker, and the first version of Don't Ask Me Questions, which I think in 78 became Hey Lord, Don't Ask Me Questions, was then produced by Mutt Lange and became a bit of a disco tune. The best version, I think, is on here. I love it. I remember John Peel loving that song and playing it a lot. 76 saw this album, No Heavy Petting, on Chrysalis Records. This is UFO, and there's a number of really good songs on here, but there's one song which I think features one of Michael Schenker's greatest guitar solos. It's called I'm a Loser. It's absolutely brilliant. I revisited this album the other day because I couldn't really remember it until I played one song and I thought, oh God, I love this song. It's brilliant. The album is A Trick of the Tail, the band of Genesis. This is post Peter Gabriel Genesis, and the song Ripples. The melody on that, is to die for. It's absolutely brilliant. 76 saw Sabbath on the decline. They produced Technical Ecstasy, which I don't particularly like. But there's a song on here that closes the album called Dirty Women, which is a top 10 Sabbath tune for me. Absolutely brilliant. The guitar work from Tony Iommi, sensational. 76 also saw the second solo album from a guitarist called Tommy Bolin, an American artist who'd been with Zephyr. He'd also played on Billy Cobham's Spectrum album. He played on Alphonse Mouzon album. Real good jazz fusion guitarist. Also played with the James Gang. He can play all styles. He did an album called Teaser in 75. This is in 76, the year he sadly died at the age of about 25. Great album. But the song on here, there's a number of good songs, but I think Shake the Devil is fantastic. 76 saw Moon Madness by Camel, proggy band. There's a song on here which features the guitar talents of Andy Latimer, who was ever present really in this band. Fantastic song called Lunar Sea. Brilliant stuff. A little bit punkier now. Second album from Patti Smith, Radio Ethiopia. The opening track to this album, called Ask the Angels, is really worthy of your attention. It's ahead of its time. It's fantastic. I mentioned Santana earlier, and Santana had a couple of players on Santana 3 and Caravanserai who went on to form their own band. Those two players were Greg Rowley, the original singer of Santana, and a guitarist who played alongside Carlos Santana on the third album, Caravanserai, called Neil Schoen. Together they formed the band Journey, and this is their second album, Looking to the Future. Now, if you're expecting, you know, Open Arms, Who's Crying Now, Still They Ride, and you're looking for big ballads, don't look for it on this album particularly. Look for Looking to the Future. If you like guitar work, wow, the guitar work on Looking to the Future by Neil Schoen is absolutely brilliant. Next up, Steely Dan. This is the Royal Scam from '76, 50 years old. This is, I think, quite a timeless album in some ways. Kid Charlemagne featuring some absolutely brilliant guitar, again from Larry Carlton, much in demand in those years. But Don't Take Me Alive, one of my favourite Steely Dan songs. I must do a favourite 5 on them. 76 brought us probably what's often seen as the best studio album by this band. I don't know if it is, but I blow hot and cold with this band. I love the cover. This is Destroyer by Kiss. This is the album that features Beth, which was a big hit. Unusual song for them, but Shout It Out Loud is a great kind of rock song. But Detroit Rock City, with its over-the-top production from Alice Cooper's producer Bob Ezrin, is absolutely brilliant. I love that. So yeah, 76, 50 years old, Destroyer. Next up, the debut album from a band who feature, I think, in their lead singer, the greatest female rock vocalist ever. She has got such a set of pipes on her, absolutely unbelievable. Her name is Ann Wilson, the band are Heart. This is their debut, Dreamboat Annie. I think the opening track, Magic Man, is as good as they got. Crazy on You is close, but I think this album is fantastic. The vocals are brilliant. It's very kind of bit Led Zeppelin, kind of a bit folky, bit kind of influenced by that sort of sound, but it's a great album. The opening track, Magic Man, would be my choice. Next up is a band that kind of didn't fit genres very well, always changing their sound. I think this is their best album. It's probably their rockiest album. It's Bebop Deluxe and Sunburst Finish. Probably their debut is their rockiest, actually, but this is a great album, my favourite album. This also features my favourite song by Bebop Deluxe, and that's a homage to Jimi Hendrix, Crying to the Sky, with just brilliant guitar work from Bill Nelson. Moving away from glam, this band were always a rock band but had a glam career, but when you flipped over their singles and played their B-side, you knew there was a hidden side to this band. They showed it on a few albums. They certainly showed it on this one. This is Give Us a Wink by Sweet, with lots of brilliant double entendres on the back there. There's some tremendous songs on here, Lies in Your Eyes, Cockroach, great rock songs, but Action, which has been covered by a few people, is a brilliant rock song. I love that. Give Us a Wink by Sweet, 50 years old, wow. This guy I saw in 1980. Next up, brilliant guitarist. When he played, the thing that amazed me about it is when he played the guitar, he never really looked at it. It was just part of him. It was effortless. And this is 50 years old this year. This is Calling Card by Rory Gallagher. The title track is brilliant, but I think Moonchild is the pick for me. And so now we're going to some of the best albums from 1976. And some of those albums are brilliant, but I think these are, for me, the pick. These are no particular order at all, but this is the high point of this guy's career, I would have said. And it's Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder. This is a double album with a free EP as well. Just an absolute creative peak. There's very few Duff songs on here. The standard of musicianship on this album, I mean, he's, got some of the most brilliant musicians on here, and the quality of the music is sensational. There's even a little bit of kind of jazz fusion with Contusion in here, which I think's got Mike Sembello. Is it Michael Sembello on guitar? It's fantastic. Sir Duke's on here. I Wish. Pastime Paradise is on here. Another Star, but I love As. I think it's just a brilliant song. I think George Michael covered that, didn't he? Which actually is quite a good version. But this album is just, it's just brilliant. This album came out in '77 here in the UK, but it is a '76 album in the States, so I'm going to include it, although I didn't become aware of this guy until '77. And there's a couple of singles that I bought straight away from this album, and I didn't buy this album until a few years later in the '80s, actually. I got this in a charity shop. But this is the debut album from Tom Petty. So this is a '76 album, although in the UK here it would have been a '77 album. But, anything that's rock and roll, Breakdown, and American Girl. Oh, what a brilliant song. Absolutely fantastic. Next up is an album that saved this band's career. They'd just done a pretty duff album. I don't mind it, but it's a little bit weird. But this album saved them, and they went on to amazing success. This is 2112 by Rush, which features on one side one song called 2112, which is an amalgamation of different songs, but they kind of all mold together. Brilliant accumulation of songs in 2112. The second side's good as well. Passage to Bangkok, Twilight Zone, Tears Are Like Something for Nothing, but side one is absolutely brilliant, especially the opening track Overture and the final one Grand Finale. Great album from Rush. Led Zeppelin, is this their last good album? Presence, Trampled Underfoot, it's on here. T for One, Achilles' Last Stand is on here. It's a decent album. I prefer their first four albums, if I'm really honest. But there's the track listing there. It's a good album, a really good album, and probably their last decent album, I would have said. Next up is an album that I became aware of in '77, because I think most of the singles came out in '77 here in the UK, but this album actually was recorded in and released in 1976, and of course it's Hotel California. Number of singles came from this, but I think the title track, I don't tire of that song. I don't know what it is about it. I just think it's brilliant. The guitar work is it Don Felder, is it, on the guitar, and Joe Walsh possibly, but it's just brilliant. I love that song, and that's a decent album for sure. Probably the best album by this band, Jailbreak. This came out 50 years ago this year. This has got some of their absolute classics on it. Of course, it's got The Boys Are Back in Town. They're probably their most well-known song, Jailbreak. Warriors is fantastic. Cowboy song is great. It also has the best song they ever did in the studio, and that's Emerald, in my opinion anyway. Fantastic song. And then we've got a seminal album, an absolutely seminal album. Is it the first punk album? I'm not sure, but it's just an absolute game changer. Iconic songs, iconic cover, iconic band. Of course, it's the debut from the Ramones. The opening song, Blitzkrieg Bop, that changed everything. I prefer Leave Home, I prefer Rocket to Russia, but this album was brilliant. Judy is a Punk is just brilliant. I think this album is Now I Want to Sniff Some Glue. It's just, brilliant stuff. This album I also love. Now, I became aware of this band in '77 with a particular song. It became one of my favourite songs of all time. But this album came out in '76, and it's The Modern Lovers. I think they're a one-and-done band, aren't they? This is the only album I think they brought out, I think. But this is just brilliant. Of course, Roadrunner's on here, which is, for me, just a timeless, brilliant song. But Astral Plane, Old World, She Cracked, Modern World. I just think it's so simple, but so brilliant, this album. I absolutely love it. '76 on Berserkly Records. And then we've come to two absolutely classic albums that are 50 years old this year. One of them, I think, has one of the greatest sides of rock ever, and it's the debut album from Boston. The first side of More Than the Feeling, never tire of that song, Peace of Mind and Foreplay Long Time is just brilliant. Is it the greatest side of a hard rock album of all time? No, because that's on this album. 50 years old this year is Rising by Rainbow. On side 2, we've got Lighting the Black that closes the album, and just before that, we've got Stargazer. That is a perfect side of vinyl. This is a sensational album, one of my favourite albums, and it's 50 years old this year. There you go, 50 albums that turn 50. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and I'm sure I'll be back sometime soon with another video. Cheers.